Aaliyah sat in the driver's seat of her old, blue sedan, gripping the steering wheel tightly. The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. It was just another normal day after school, but Aaliyah could feel something was different. She was on her way home from the library, thinking about the homework she needed to finish. As she turned a corner, flashing blue and red lights appeared behind her. The familiar sound of a police siren made her heart skip a beat. She sighed quietly, pulling over to the side of the road. The police officer walked up slowly, his face unreadable. "License and registration, please," the officer said in a flat voice. Aaliyah reached into her glove compartment and pulled out her documents. Her hands were trembling just a little. She handed them over carefully. The officer looked at the papers but didn't say anything for a moment. Instead, he stared at Aaliyah, his eyes filled with suspicion. Aaliyah felt uncomfortable but stayed calm. "Do you know why I stopped you?" the officer asked. "No, sir," Aaliyah answered politely. "You were going a little over the speed limit back there." "Just a warning this time," the officer said. Aaliyah nodded. "I'm sorry, officer. I didn't realize." The officer looked at her again and smirked. "You know, it's funny. You don't look like someone who would be careful about rules." Aaliyah blinked. She felt a cold wave of embarrassment and anger. "I try my best to follow rules," she said softly. The officer laughed, a short, sharp sound that made Aaliyah's stomach twist. "Sure," he said. "What do you want me to believe?" Aaliyah took a deep breath. She remembered what her mother had told her many times, to always stay calm and speak with respect, no matter what. So she said, "My mom is a federal judge." The officer stopped laughing immediately and raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really?" he said, sounding amused. "A federal judge? That's rich. I don't see her around here." Aaliyah's heart pounded. She didn't know if he was mocking her or if he genuinely didn't believe her. "Yes, sir," she said. "She works in the courthouse downtown." The officer shook his head and smiled cruelly. "Well, your mom must be very proud of you, then." Aaliyah looked down at her hands, feeling small and invisible. She wanted to say more, but the words stuck in her throat. "All right, you're free to go," the officer said, handing back her documents. Aaliyah started the car and drove away, her eyes burning with tears she refused to let fall. She thought about how different this moment could have been if the officer had just treated her with respect from the beginning. As she drove, she wondered why people often judged her before they even knew her. She thought about her mother's strength and all the hard work she had done to become a federal judge. It was a world away from this small town and this small moment of doubt. Aaliyah knew that her mother's story was bigger than just a job title. It was a story about courage, hope, and the fight for justice. And even if the officer didn't believe her, she would never forget it. That night, Aaliyah told her mother everything. Her mother listened carefully, then smiled gently. "Remember, Aaliyah," she said, "sometimes people don't see what's right in front of them. But that doesn't mean you are any less." Aaliyah nodded, feeling a little stronger. She decided that no matter what happened, she would keep being proud of who she was and where she came from. The next morning, Aaliyah woke up with a heavy feeling in her chest. The memory of the police officer's laugh and doubt from last night was still fresh in her mind. She had tried to shake it off, but it kept coming back, like an unwanted shadow. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at her breakfast, but the food didn't taste right. Her mother noticed her silence. "What's wrong, Aaliyah?" she asked softly, setting down her coffee. Aaliyah hesitated but then spoke. "The officer didn't believe me when I said you were a federal judge." He laughed. "He didn't respect me." Her mother nodded slowly, understanding the pain behind those words. Sometimes, people judge others before they even know them. It's not fair, but it happens. What matters is how you hold yourself. Aaliyah sighed. I tried to stay calm, but I felt so small. Why would he think I was lying? Her mother reached across the table and took her hand. Because he let his own ideas about you decide how he treated you. That's his mistake, not yours. The words were comforting, but Aaliyah still felt the sting of the moment. At school, she tried to focus on her classes, but her mind kept drifting back to the police stop. She thought about how the officer looked at her, like she was less than others. During lunch, her friends asked what happened. Aaliyah told them the story quietly. Some nodded with understanding, others looked surprised. One friend, Maya, said, "It's not right. People should listen to you." Another said, "Maybe he was just having a bad day." Aaliyah smiled weakly. "Maybe," she said. But inside, she knew it was more than that. It was about how people see each other, how some don't expect good things from people who look like her. That afternoon, Aaliyah walked home through the park. The trees were green, the birds were singing, but she felt heavy. She wondered if she would ever be able to change what people thought about her and her family. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her mother, "Remember who you are. No one can take that away." Aaliyah looked up at the sky and took a deep breath. She felt a little stronger. At home, Aaliyah sat at her desk and opened her notebook. She started writing about her mother, about the long nights her mother spent studying law, the cases she worked on, and the way she fought for fairness. Aaliyah wrote about the judge's calm voice and strong hands, about how proud she was to be her daughter. Writing made Aaliyah feel better. It helped her remember that her mother's work was real and important, even if some people didn't see it right away. That evening, as the sun set, Aaliyah's mother came into her room. "I'm proud of you, Aaliyah. You handled yourself well yesterday." "Thank you, Mom," Aaliyah said. "But sometimes, I wish people would just believe me without doubting." Her mother smiled kindly. "Change takes time. And sometimes, people need to see things for themselves before they can believe." Aaliyah nodded slowly, understanding that the officer's doubt was not just about her. It was about the way some people see the world. Before bed, Aaliyah looked in the mirror. She saw a girl with dark eyes full of hope and a heart full of courage. She whispered to herself, "I will be strong. I will make them believe." As she turned off the light, she felt ready to face whatever came next. Because deep down, Aaliyah knew that her story and her mother's was bigger than any moment of doubt. Aaliyah loved quiet evenings at home. After a long day at school, she enjoyed sitting by the window, watching the world outside as the sun went down. Tonight was no different, but her thoughts were busy with the police officer's laughter and doubt from a few days ago. Her mother, Judge Simone Harper, was in her study, surrounded by books and papers. Aaliyah had always been curious about her mother's work but didn't always understand all the legal words. Tonight, she wanted to know more. She walked into her mother's study and sat down quietly. "Mom," she said softly, "can you tell me how you became a federal judge?" Simone smiled gently and closed her book. "Of course, Aaliyah. It's a long story, but I'll tell you." She began with the early days, when she was a young girl, much like Aaliyah, dreaming of making a difference in the world. "I grew up in a small town where not many people looked like me or had big dreams. My parents worked hard, but life was not always easy." Aaliyah listened closely, her eyes wide. "Even then," Simone continued, "I knew I wanted to help people. I loved reading and learning about laws and fairness. But it wasn't easy. I faced many challenges because of who I was." Simone paused, then looked at her daughter. "People sometimes didn't believe in me. They doubted I could do important things just because of my skin color or where I came from. But I didn't let that stop me." Aaliyah felt a lump in her throat. She didn't know her mother had struggled so much. Her mother smiled softly. "I worked hard in school, went to law college, and fought for every chance I got. There were days I wanted to give up, but I remembered why I started. Simone reached over and took Aaliyah's hand. Becoming a federal judge was one of the biggest honors of my life. It means I get to make decisions that help keep fairness and justice alive. Aaliyah squeezed her mother's hand. I'm proud of you, Mom. Simone's eyes shone with love. And I'm proud of you, Aaliyah. You have that same strength inside you. Aaliyah thought about the police officer again. She understood better now why he didn't believe her. Sometimes, people couldn't imagine that someone like her mother could be so important. But Mom, Aaliyah said, why do some people think things about us before they even know us? Simone sighed. Because of fear and habit. People often judge others based on what they see on the outside. It's easier for them to believe stories that fit their own ideas. Aaliyah nodded slowly. I want to change that. Simone smiled. That's the spirit, Aaliyah. Change starts with people like you who are proud of who they are. They sat together quietly for a moment. Then Simone spoke again. Would you like to come to the courthouse with me one day? To see what I do? Aaliyah's face lit up. Yes, please. Simone laughed softly. Good. I think it's important for you to see the work behind the title. Over the next few days, Aaliyah thought about her mother's story often. She felt closer to her mother and more determined to be proud of who she was. She remembered how her mother always told her to be kind, to be brave, and to believe in herself. Those words felt stronger now. One afternoon, Aaliyah was doing homework when her phone buzzed. It was a text from her mother. Tomorrow, wear something nice. We have a special day planned. Aaliyah smiled and felt excitement bubbling inside her. Maybe this day would help her show the world the truth about her family. As the night fell, Aaliyah looked at the stars outside her window. She thought about the future, a future where she could be proud and strong, no matter what others thought. And deep inside, she felt a quiet hope. A hope that one day, no one would laugh or doubt her again. The morning sun peeked through the curtains as Aaliyah got ready for the special day her mother had promised. She chose her favorite outfit, a neat white shirt and blue jeans. She wanted to look her best, but still feel comfortable. Her heart beat with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Downstairs, her mother was already dressed in her judge's robes. The room felt serious, but warm. Simone smiled at Aaliyah as she entered the living room. Are you ready? Her mother asked kindly. Aaliyah nodded. Yes, Mom. I want to see everything. They left the house quietly. As they walked to the car, Aaliyah noticed people greeting her mother with respect. It made her feel proud, but also reminded her of the day when the police officer had laughed. In the car, the city was alive with sounds and movement. Aaliyah watched the buildings pass by and thought about all the stories they held. At the courthouse, the security guard nodded politely as they entered. Inside, the building was grand and filled with voices of people waiting for justice. Simone led Aaliyah through halls decorated with paintings and plaques honoring judges from long ago. They stopped outside a large courtroom. This is where I work, Simone said softly. Aaliyah looked inside. The room was quiet except for the judge's bench and the seats for lawyers and visitors. She imagined all the important decisions made here. Suddenly, Aaliyah's phone buzzed. She checked it and saw a message from an unknown number. Is your mother really a federal judge? The cop says he wants proof. Aaliyah's heart sank. The words brought back memories of the police stop. Who would send such a message? Her mother noticed Aaliyah's change in expression. What is it? She asked. Aaliyah showed her the message. Simone's face grew serious, but calm. It seems someone still doubts us, Simone said. But that is okay. We will let the truth show itself. Just then, a phone on Simone's desk rang. She answered quickly. Yes, this is Judge Harper, she said. Aaliyah watched as her mother listened carefully, then spoke firmly. Thank you for calling to confirm. Yes, this is Aaliyah's mother. I appreciate your attention to this matter. Simone hung up and looked at Aaliyah. That was the police department, she explained. They wanted to make sure the information was true. Aaliyah felt a mix of relief and sadness. Even now, the doubt was still there. Her mother reached out and squeezed her hand. Sometimes, people need to hear the truth directly. And that is okay. Because the truth is strong. Aaliyah nodded. She understood that her mother was not angry, just confident. The judge then took Aaliyah to meet some of her colleagues, other judges and lawyers who worked hard every day to keep justice fair. They smiled warmly at Aaliyah, making her feel welcome and important. One of the judges, a kind woman named Judge Lewis, knelt down and said, "You should be very proud of your mother, Aaliyah. She works hard for people who need help." Aaliyah smiled brightly. "I am proud. She is my hero." Judge Lewis nodded. "And one day, you can be a hero too." Those words stayed with Aaliyah as they walked back to the car. She felt stronger and more sure of herself than before. On the drive home, Aaliyah looked at her mother and said, "Thank you for bringing me here today. I want to be just like you." Simone smiled warmly. "You already have the heart, Aaliyah. The rest will come with time." That night, as Aaliyah lay in bed, she thought about the call from the police department. It showed that sometimes people need proof, not just words. But Aaliyah also knew that her mother's work was real and important no matter what anyone said. She closed her eyes, feeling hope and pride fill her heart. Tomorrow was a new day. And Aaliyah was ready to face it with courage. The morning air was cool and fresh as Aaliyah and her mother arrived at the local police station. Aaliyah felt a strange mix of nerves and curiosity. Her mother had told her to stay calm and confident. Today, something important was going to happen. Inside the station, the walls were painted a pale blue, and the hum of voices and ringing phones filled the air. Aaliyah followed her mother through the hallways until they reached a small office where the officer who had stopped Aaliyah was waiting. The officer looked up, surprised to see Judge Simone Harper standing in the room. His face quickly changed from casual to serious. He stood and offered a stiff nod. "Judge Harper," he said quietly. "Thank you for coming." Simone nodded back. "Thank you for taking the time to clear this up." Aaliyah stood beside her mother, feeling proud and a little nervous. The officer glanced at her and then back at Simone. "I want to apologize for how I treated your daughter," he said slowly. "I didn't believe her when she said you were a federal judge. I'm sorry for my disrespect." Simone smiled gently. "I appreciate your apology. It takes courage to admit when we are wrong." The officer looked down for a moment, then back up. "I realize now that I let my own doubts and assumptions affect how I spoke to Aaliyah. That was unfair." Aaliyah watched the officer closely. She saw honesty in his eyes, and she felt a small hope growing inside her. Simone continued, "This moment is important not just for your apology, but for what it means. It shows that we all can learn and grow. We must treat everyone with respect, no matter who they are." The officer nodded. "I understand. I will do better." Aaliyah smiled shyly. "Thank you." After a few more words, the conversation ended. Simone and Aaliyah left the station, stepping out into the bright sunlight. As they walked to the car, Aaliyah's mother spoke softly. "See, Aaliyah? Sometimes, people need time and experience to understand. Your story helped open his eyes." Aaliyah nodded. "I'm glad he said sorry." Simone smiled. "Apologies are a start. But change comes from respect and action." The rest of the day felt different to Aaliyah. She felt lighter and braver. The officer's apology was not just about one person, it was a sign that the world could change, bit by bit. That evening, Aaliyah and her mother sat on the porch, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. "Mom," Aaliyah said quietly, "do you think people will always judge others like that?" Simone shook her head gently. "I hope not. But if they do, it's up to us to show them a better way. Aaliyah looked up at the stars, feeling proud of her mother and hopeful for the future. She knew that this was only the beginning. There would be more challenges, but also more chances to make a difference. And with her mother's strength beside her, Aaliyah felt ready for anything. The next morning, the police officer woke up feeling different. The apology he had given yesterday was not just words, it was a turning point for him. He couldn't stop thinking about Aaliyah and her mother, Judge Simone Harper. Something about their courage and dignity stayed with him. At the station, the officer found himself watching the people he interacted with more carefully. He thought about how easy it had been to judge Aaliyah too quickly. That moment had shown him how much harm doubt and disrespect could cause. He remembered the way Aaliyah had stood tall, even when he laughed at her. Her calmness and strength made him realize that he had been wrong. The officer spoke to his partner during their break. "You know, I met this young girl yesterday. She said her mom is a federal judge." His partner raised an eyebrow. "Did you believe her?" "I didn't at first. But then the judge came to the station. I apologized. It made me think. I treated her unfairly. I need to be better." His partner nodded slowly. "It's easy to fall into old habits. But it's good you see that now." That day, the officer began to change how he approached his work. He started listening more, judging less, and showing respect to everyone he met, no matter who they were. Meanwhile, Aaliyah was at school, feeling lighter and more hopeful than before. The apology and the visit to the police station had made her believe that things could get better. She talked to her friends about what had happened. They listened with interest and said they were proud of her. At home, Aaliyah's mother noticed the change in her daughter. "You seem happier," Simone said one evening. "I feel stronger," Aaliyah replied. "I know that sometimes people don't understand, but they can learn." Simone smiled. "That's because you are brave. And you have a good heart." One afternoon, Aaliyah received a letter from the police department. It thanked her for her patience and courage during the stop. The letter said they would use her story to help train officers to treat everyone with respect. Aaliyah felt a warm glow inside. Her small moment of courage was making a difference. That night, she looked out the window and thought about the future. She dreamed of a world where no one would be laughed at or doubted because of who they were. With her mother's example to guide her, Aaliyah knew she could help make that world real. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I will keep being strong." The weeks passed, and life slowly returned to normal for Aaliyah and her mother. But something had changed deep inside both of them. The experience with the police officer had become more than just a moment, it had become a lesson in courage, respect, and hope. Aaliyah walked to school one bright morning, feeling the warm sun on her face. She smiled as she remembered the kind words her mother had shared and the apology she had received from the officer. She knew she was stronger now. At school, Aaliyah joined a group of students preparing for a community event about respect and understanding. The group wanted to help others see the importance of kindness and fairness. During one meeting, Aaliyah spoke up. "We need to teach people to listen first, and not judge by how someone looks or where they come from." Her friends nodded. Maya said, "Yeah, it's about seeing the person, not the label." Aaliyah felt proud to be part of something bigger. It was a way to share what she had learned and help others. Back at home, Judge Simone Harper continued her work at the courthouse. She often spoke about fairness and justice in her cases, always remembering how important it was to treat everyone with respect. One afternoon, Simone came home with a surprise. "Aaliyah," she said, "the police department has invited me to speak at a training session for officers about respect and fairness. They want me to share our story." Aaliyah's eyes lit up. "That's amazing, Mom. People will finally hear the truth." Simone smiled. "Yes, and it's a chance to make a real difference." Together, they prepared for the event. They talked about how important it was for people to understand each other and to stop making quick judgments. On the day of the training, Aaliyah sat quietly in the audience as her mother spoke to the officers. Simone's voice was calm but powerful. She shared their story: the stop, the doubt, the apology, and the lessons learned. The room was silent. The officers listened carefully, many nodding in understanding. Afterwards, the lead officer thanked Simone. "Your story opened our eyes. We promise to work harder to treat everyone with respect." Aaliyah felt a warm pride. The truth had finally reached those who needed to hear it most. Later that evening, Aaliyah and her mother sat on their porch, watching the stars appear in the dark sky. "Mom," Aaliyah said softly, "I think things will get better." Simone smiled. "I believe so too, Aaliyah. And it's people like you who will help make it happen." Aaliyah looked up at the stars, feeling hope fill her heart. She knew that the road ahead might still have challenges, but she was ready to face them. Because now, she understood that her voice mattered. Her story mattered. And with courage, respect, and love, she could help build a better future, one where no one would be laughed at or doubted again. As the night grew quiet, Aaliyah whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning.